Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here this morning. It's time to start. And first of all, before we get into, do we have anybody we don't have any new faces here. Everybody knows the way it works. Before we get started and following the agenda this morning, Mr. Hewitt and I are supposed to be at a GSAT meeting at 10:30 at Carolina Shores this morning for whatever that means. I know by contract and other requirements that have to be satisfied, Mr. Hewitt has to be here during our regular meetings. He can't leave unless you give him permission to, and I don't even think by statute he can leave then, can you, Mr. Hewitt?
I'd prefer to be here during the budget workshop.
Yes, sir, that's right. However, the GSAT meeting, I don't know whether we're gonna be through here in time for me to get there or not, but I don't know what your pleasure is, but I hadn't figured out how to be in two places at the same time. I got the same problem coming up one day next week for another town issue, but we do the best we can. So I don't know whether you want me to go to that, or whether you want me to stay here and listen to you guys talk about the budget. So, some direction on that.
I'd be comfortable with you making that decision either way.
All right, if that's the case, then I'll just play it by ear. I don't see why you guys can't do the budget part without me being here anyway. I mean, all you're gonna do is talk about it, you're not voting on it, right?
And we're only talking about part of it. We're only talking
Expenses,
about
yeah.
expenses and.
All right,
You're not raising your pay.
all right, so, yeah. All right, so with that, if I have to get up and leave, I'll tell you, and
Okay.
whatever. So we'll go to number 2.
Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt, please? I don't see a item on the agenda for agenda approval.
Well, I didn't,
Special meetings don't, because they're called for a specific purpose, so that purpose has already been approved by the board. You can't really, you're not supposed to change special meetings.
Okay? I'll accept that.
I mean, you guys can, but it's bad practice, so
Okay.
it's completely up to you, but
Good.
when you do it, you state it for an actual purpose.
all right, I guess we shall proceed. Mr. Hewitt, is this you or who's? don't know.
Miss Lochner's gonna, well, I thought there were,
Yeah,
thought there were two things on there.
Are we going to number 2?
Oh, I didn't see.
not
two on the
not
agenda?
yet.
Number 2, doesn't ask her to do it, please, first. Ah, okay.
Somebody give me some directions, because I don't have a clue what's going on.
Well, we're moving to item number 2 on the agenda.
All right, so who wants to talk to that? Ms. Lochner gonna do that?
No, not me.
You not a growing lady this morning?
I guess, when I read it at first, I looked at it, and the word that I have a major problem with here is suspend. We talked in the last meeting about what we wanted to do, and I think that's in the minutes. And now I see the word suspend. When I look at suspend, I see suspend as something up in the air. And I know Tuesday, we had the agenda published on Tuesday, and I don't want to confuse the public neither as to what we're doing or what we're trying to do. So I just, maybe we need to remove that, number 2.
No, but
Well, let's have a discussion on it.
let me try to clarify this. At the last special meeting, we had directed Mr. Wright to petition the Army Corps of Engineers to suspend, not to suspend, to extend the comment period, the 30-day comment period. Mr. Wright went to the Army Corps of Engineer. He was advised by the Corps that they would not look favorably upon the extension of the comment period. However, a way to affect that extension and to benefit the town would be to ask for a suspension, that they would look favorably upon the suspension and that they would grant the suspension. So Mr. Wright has suggested that we make a motion to allow him to ask for that suspension. And all that would do would be, you know, in the old belt and suspenders. So if we don't get around to voting on the issue at the next meeting, it will be suspended, and that way, the time for the comment period won't run out, the time for the rod to begin to be considered won't commence. So this is a safety measure that we're here today to vote on.
Fair enough, but this was before the agenda that was published for the evening of the 17th. So I think having this and the two items on the agenda on the 17th related to the groin is confusing to the Army Corps of Engineers and the public.
I don't believe it will be confusing to the Army Corps of Engineers. Their feedback about requesting a suspension was by email. It could be done automatically, pretty much. So I don't think that it is confusing to them. It's a simple procedure that they've already discussed with the attorney. The suspension, I mean, it's what was appropriate after our discussion about they would not give us any kind of an extension on comments. So I don't see what the confusion is, quite honestly. I think they're prepared for it.
Yeah, you know, that's one side of it. The other side of it I have is that, you know, I'm concerned about the public. I'm concerned about, obviously, we're gonna pay our lawyer to do something. And then when we have a meeting on Tuesday, then we're gonna pay the lawyer to do something else. So why don't we just wait till Tuesday and just decide?
I have an issue just in understanding.
If I could answer that question, though? Because if we wait till Tuesday, the time has expired. We have to have it done by the 16th. So if we don't do it today, then we don't have to do it at all on Tuesday because it has no effect. Sorry, John.
But the public hasn't seen this at all, right? They have no knowledge whatsoever of this item. The public's never seen this issue on the table,
No.
no.
And
And I
it's,
thought your process was we would never do that. We would never vote on something the public hadn't seen first.
Well,
The
I
public
mean,
is
it
here
was-
now. They're seeing it now. Wait, excuse me.
Twice in a row, you wouldn't let me vote on an audit committee issue because of the timing and stuff. I just want to make sure that there's a
But-
reason that we would do this and we wouldn't do the audit committee.
Let me just clarify this. When I objected to anything that you put on there, we weren't even voting on the issue that was on the agenda. You changed the issue that was on the agenda. This was on the agenda, it was sent out, people are here to hear it. And let me say one other thing. This is to the benefit of the people who want to stop this project last week. This is not, I'm not arguing to do this because, I mean, I just don't understand where you people are coming from. You are the ones who want to stop this. This is the way to do it. If you don't want to vote on it, be my guest.
so the reason or some of the explanation that we just went through is not documented. So I understood there were some other discussions on the 6th about suspending and doing something further within the U.S. Corps of Engineers and within the permitting process. So that, I couldn't, delineate what the reason was for the suspension. So that, I think that's the,
Well, maybe we need to put that in there.
yeah, if you want to, if that's put in there, I'm okay. But without it,
We just add that, we're fine.
Do it.
We're all fine. Yeah. So, Mike, would you please repeat again to suspend, the purpose of the suspension is to?
The purpose of the suspension is to allow time, it's to achieve the goal that this group had asked the environmental attorney to achieve, which was to extend the comment period, thereby stopping the time where the rod could be issued. All right? Once the comment period ends, then the rod, the concern of some of the people here was that the rod could be issued the very next day. We voted to extend the comment period, so that didn't happen. We were told that they would not extend the comment period, and as an alternative, to achieve the same goal, you could ask for a suspension, and a suspension would be granted.
Right.
That's what this is asking.
Okay, so it's strictly a calendar, one-day gap issue. Can the clerk, can we just add that to this,
You guys can make the motion however you want it, that's just the item, so
okay,
it
there's
doesn't
no,
have to be duplicate to the actual item.
okay. Well, like we said, in my mind, the attorney also advised us that one day is not gonna come into play, but fair enough.
We just need the motion properly worded.
So I just make the motion that after the word suspend to achieve the goal to extend the comment period. And I think that puts it to bed. Doesn't it?
Sure.
Want me to repeat that?
Well, the motion hasn't been made yet, has it?
Well, I'm making a
He's
motion.
making a motion.
I'm making a motion that we add what Mike recommended to suspend. The purpose of the suspension is to achieve the goal to expend the comment period.
I would,
Excuse me, I
No.
object to that because that's not the motion. That's our comment. That's our discussion. We discuss the reason for it. When we make a motion, we don't delineate all the discussion that we've had and the reason we make the motion. We make the motion.
So somebody needs to make the motion. That's not the motion.
That's the agenda
not the
item.
motion.
There's nothing behind that agenda item.
There's no
That's
motion
what
been made.
Heather's point is.
So Mike, just make a motion that she can record as the motion we're voting on.
And then you can amend the motion if you.
Then I make the motion that the board direct Clark Wright, the environmental attorney for the town of Holden Beach, to request that the United States Army Corps of Engineer immediately suspend further processing of the town's pending Section 10 and Section 404 permit applications, pending further determination by the Holden Beach Board of Commissioners.
Can we have a motion, is there a second?
second.
All right, now we can discuss it.
Okay, good. I'd make the recommendation that we,
You're making a motion to amend?
to amend. To amend it. And what I said before is to suspend in order to achieve the goal to expend the comment period.
If I may interject on that, it was not clear to me at the last closed session we had whether or not suspending automatically froze the clock on comments. So not knowing that, I would rather not have it in our motion because it could render the motion inaccurate. Unless someone else heard clearly from our attorney that the clock would stop as well on comments, which I don't recall hearing.
I think we can satisfy you, but, so let's, the reason being that we can get to the next regular scheduled Board of Commissioners meeting where we'll also take up this topic. Not-
Okay, we've got a point of order here. We have a motion to amend. We need to deal with that before we discuss it. So we have a motion to amend, so does the motion maker approve the proposed amendment?
No.
Okay. So we don't go forward, so the motion stays the way it is.
So I thought are we taking his amendment? Okay, so I make a motion to amend that the reason is to suspend the further processing of the town pending Section 10 and Section 104 permit applications for the reason of getting to, or whatever words you want to use, somebody help me, getting to the next Board of Commissioners meeting on April 17th.
All right, that's a motion to amend. Does the motion maker agree to that?
No, I don't.
All right, so the motion still stands. Any discussion, further discussion on the motion on the table? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, excuse me, I withdraw that. I would vote for my amendment.
Okay, so the motion has 2 positive votes. Those opposed say no.
No.
So it's 3-2 against the motion. So the floor is open for another motion. Hearing no motions, we shall move forward on the agenda. All right, all right, everybody understand where we are? I think I understand where we are. So we're gonna talk about number 3, budget workshop expenses. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Lochner.
In the request of a couple people's time, I was going to sort of let you guys decide how you wanted to proceed, but if I can make a request to do Fund 10 first, because I know that Chief Lane has to get to a funeral, and I know that the mayor has to leave. So if that's okay with you guys, can I start with Fund 10?
It's okay with me? Yep.
You've seen the schedule, April 13th expense workshop. Here are our expenses by fund. We're gonna start with general. In the general fund, we have the governing body, administration, police department, building inspection, streets, and sanitation.
Before you go any further, I have some questions on the first page of the general fund.
But,
Are we discussing the general fund?
yes.
Yeah.
What's your question?
Well, my first one is what professional services, because I've seen it throughout, what are these professional services that we're approving a budget for?
Well,
That's-
they're in each department.
That's what he's talking to. He's talking about governing body.
Yeah, I haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Details to follow,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, haven't got there yet. In the governing body and its administration side, you can see that we have our decrease in the town hall, debt service. We have put in a 3% increase, merit or COLA, it's up to the board. The monies in the communication line represent, the request for a professional website design for our town website. And then the increase in the new town hall line, includes our HVAC repair, some building maintenance, we have some doors that need to be fixed, and some kitchen appliances have died. The relocating of generator, I think we are moving into the next fiscal year, am I correct? So that's gonna go away. So your question is on professional services?
Right. We have 48,000 there, and we have 42,000 on under the communications line.
The communications line, the part of that money is for redoing the website. Does that answer your question?
That professional services line is the town attorney and the audit expense.
Oh, that's okay.
Is that going out to bid, the redesign or redo of the website?
That's just an estimate that
Okay.
we've
Yeah, but I
acquired.
don't
We
think
haven't
that
bid
they've
it
done
yet.
that yet, but it is part of what they wanna do next year. Is there any other questions?
Only a comment, there are a number of, and it goes throughout, a number of 17, 18 budget line items that no money has been spent this year, and yet we're repeating the same number the next time. And there are 5 or 6 of those on this page. Or, say for travel, 2,000, we only spent 329, but we're booking 2,000 again. Decorations, 500, we didn't spend anything, we're booking it again. AB supplies and materials, we budgeted 1,500, you spent half of it, and we're budgeting 3,000 again next year. So over and over and over again, we haven't spent that money this year, but we're continuing the same budget amount, or even increasing it in some cases.
The 3,000 actually represents a new fireproof cabinet that the town has requested, Heather has requested. So that's the reason why the AB Supplies and Materials has gone up $1,500, is because she has requested a new fireproof cabinet.
Okay.
And that cost is the difference? I mean, it's a $1,500? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Obvious
It's
question
written
to
in
ask.
books. I'm all out of room for my minute book, so I need a new one.
Okay.
Those travel lines are primarily for the board and any appointed boards that would travel for any type of training. And you guys haven't done much in the past. As a practice, we try to budget some small amount, should you be inclined to attend a course or two.
The bottom line on contributions, that's usually paid out. We usually pay those contributions out at the end of the year to the nonprofits that request funding from us. That's why
And-
there's not an expense there yet.
And the town hall maintenance, there's more air conditioning's being done? Didn't we do 2 this year already, or?
We anticipate that we're gonna drop 2 a year.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's, if we're lucky, it's only gonna be 2.
And they're
Right.
$100,000 for 2?
That also includes.
That also,
painting,
yeah, it includes painting, the wallpaper, you can take the generator out, kitchen appliances. So it includes a lump sum of monies.
Also, the brackets around the building that are rusted out again.
That $100,000 increase there on, it is primarily the generator relocation. Oh, it's not?
I
Okay.
took it out.
Okay.
I was gonna say. So, contribution, so you're expecting the 14,750?
Yeah, that's what we budgeted last year.
And you- and
That's
you-
typically what we do, and there's different nonprofits.
I guess the
Did you
question
not
is,
do
did
any
you
this
spend
year?
it last year? Did you spend that
Yes,
exact
we did,
amount?
we did spend it last year. We just usually spend it later in the year.
Okay,
That's
okay,
why
that's-
it hasn't been, it's not in the actual yet.
And we try to make sure that we get the tax revenue in at the beginning of the year before we make contributions.
It's
Yeah,
flexible. sir.
so you spend the entire thing? Okay,
Yeah, we
great,
do.
awesome, thanks. Okay,
I'd like to comment on the transfer to the B-Part fund line. I know that there, that is about 6 and some
It's increased
points
taxes.
change to pay for the special obligation bond. I know that it was requested, or as a discussion line, to look at reducing that by 2 cents, that contribution, which would lower the tax rate. That exercise, that reduction exercise is not reflected in that 806,000. And that, I just want to point that out, because I want to make sure that when we get into marrying the revenues and the expenses together, that we bring that back to you in the context of what it does to the fund balance ratio. I think that is what the board wanted to see, and I just point out that it's reflected here as a full 7-cent contribution, but we intend to bring that back to you for comparison on what it does in terms of fund balance ratio, if that's okay. And that number, Mandy, is a penny, $120,000.
A penny is
So, I mean,
$120,000.
y'all can do the easy math there on that, but we'll run the what if when we bring it back to you, so that decision point, if you will be set up for you. Is that okay?
fine, yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, do you have any questions?
Um,
Any more questions?
I do have a question. The salaries for the mayor and commissioners, are we getting a big raise?
Never.
Because, okay, same number.
It's the same.
We haven't, okay, just the math.
Excuse
Haven't
me.
gotten there yet,
Yeah,
okay.
Peter,
I see it.
one of the things that we discussed at the budget meeting, priorities in January, was that it was considered important that there be an overall review discussion of just, I would say, salary and benefits. Why can't we just do that after we go through everything, and then we can have that discussion?
Okay.
Because it goes across the board.
Yeah,
It's on every sheet.
Every sheet's gonna have that, yep,
So
okay,
it's,
cool.
I think it's better at the end rather than to go through each sheet and try to have a discussion.
Yeah, because the next one,
It's in every
Yeah,
sheet
yep.
because of the way it's laid out.
okay,
And it would help with the time frame of the two people who need
Yeah.
to get through he needs to get through his.
fair
part.
enough, okay, yep, good.
Okay, do you have any questions on other than the salaries, on the admin? The next page, page 7. It's pretty straightforward,
The group insurance is going up?
yes.
Okay.
Not as much as we anticipated though,
Hmm.
or maybe not anticipated, but were afraid
Afraid of,
that it was, wasn't it like 4?
I think 4.5%.
So I have to ask, the M&R equipment and advertising, is that expected to fall within the budget? Those expenses are still expected to match the previous budget?
These are more examples of.
Blank.
We
I mean, that's
budgeted
what I'm
this year,
asking.
we didn't spend it, but we're budgeting it again. Is it because we actually are delaying stuff,
What-
or?
What,
For, this line item is one, I haven't advertised the taxes yet, so that's probably gonna be next month before that's,
Okay,
before I
that's,
advertise, and the bill doesn't come in until later.
and the M&R equipment, what that normally represents is if a laptop craps out on us, we need to get it, and the clerk is, we gotta keep her going. So if one doesn't,
so that's a placeholder just in case.
well, it's kind of an emergency placeholder, because, I mean, there's a bunch of us in the admin department, it's not just Heather and David, it's me
Yeah.
and, Margaret. and-
Yeah, I hear
and-
Heather's having computer problems, so,
And the receptionist, so, in case something happens.
yeah,
for
okay,
emergencies.
thanks.
Okay, I'll move on to the police department. They're requesting no new operating expenses, they are requesting a purchase for SUV. If Wally, you want to speak to that?
Just in keeping with the policy that the town has had for the past 5, 6, 7 years, on the regular replacement of vehicles, it's time to replace one, this year, and that's the purpose of the request.
So the change to SUV versus pickup is what?
Actually.
What's the cost
it's
difference?
saving money. The SUV, completely equipped and that sort of thing, was around 48,000. The pickup trucks that we've been getting, was around 56,000. So, for the same, for less bang, the SUV just seemed like it made more sense. And the vehicle that we're replacing is actually the one that's used by our firearms instructor, who has to carry ammo and weapons and those sorts of things. And he'd be able to accomplish that with the SUV. If we had gotten another pickup truck, then we would have had to have a camper shell and, various security features that would have to be added.
Okay.
Getting the SUV eliminates all that, so it's 48,000 versus the 56 that it would have been for the truck.
And you're removing one vehicle from service as a,
What we're gonna do is, I don't know if maybe you've seen our Crown Vic that sits at the EOC as our spare vehicle. We're gonna sell the Crown Vic on Gov Deals, and
Is it as a classic?
it is a classic. And, but historically, we end up getting $4 or $5 grand for those classic vehicles that end up as taxis and So, you know, that'll be a little bit of an offset there, the 4 or 5 grand that we get for that. And then the truck that we're taking out of service is gonna become the spare. And that way, the spare that we have is also able to get to the beach, unlike the Crown Vic, which no way in the world that's going out there.
Okay, yeah, the logic stands with me.
And I would like to point out that the next to the last line item in the police department budget, you'll see that there was actually money appropriated this year to procure a truck in that replacement schedule, but due to the costing of the truck, we didn't execute that budget this year, and, you know, are going with a little bit different flavor in transitioning to the SUV for the firearms instructor. So we didn't execute that this year and just belayed it a year because of just a desire to tweak the capabilities.
Okay.
Getting a better deal next year is what it is.
And are these lease purchase agreements?
No, we're not doing those anymore.
Yeah, that's become apparently that's become a budget nightmare and an audit nightmare. So, rather than doing the lease purchase thing that we've been doing for the last several years, there's only one payment left on one vehicle, that was outstanding from the lease purchase things that we've done in the past. And so this year, we're trying to just go all in and eliminate the lease purchase thing, which eliminates the problem with the audit.
So we're just buying them
It's a
cash rather
cash
than?
out.
Okay. Okay, let's, equipment, I was looking for the AEDs. Are the police purchasing AEDs?
Yes, sir, we are going to do that.
Okay, is that in equipment then, Wally, or?
Will be.
Okay.
Yes, it will be.
Great, thanks.
And is that with the support of the Turtle Patrol? I had a comment last night in an email from the Turtle Patrol Board that they were wondering, they wanted it done, and they wondered, or is it the town payment, or are they expected to pay for it?
Town, looks
I
like.
haven't heard from the Turtle Patrol saying that they were gonna pay for it, and I was with quite a few members of the Turtle Patrol last evening.
How about the POA?
At dinner, and it never came up, so.
And the POA either?
No, I'm assuming that we're on their own. And I
Okay,
think
so it's
that
just
was
our money.
direction
The-
given, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, the feedback that the board gave us previously was that the board desired to do it, so.
Right,
Okay,
right.
And it comes down to a matter of 3 AEDs and, probably $1,500 a piece.
Fair enough.
okay, awesome, thanks.
Well, ask you a question. Not questioning the amount of overtime, but could you give me an estimate of what an average overtime hourly rate is for one of your police officers?
Well, I mean, it would be time and a half based on whatever they make. The younger officers, help me, Margaret, probably 25 an hour or around there for the younger guys, the ones that haven't been here long. All right, less than 25 for the younger folks and exponentially up for the folks that have been here longer.
Thank you.
And I don't get overtime, so,
No,
not in the mix.
I was looking at one of the other expenses in the budget, and I was wondering if it would be more cost efficient and more efficient if we had a police officer do it rather than the person that's already budgeted for it.
Right.
Thank you.
I will move on. Building inspections, they're also requesting a new vehicle for Rhonda. I'm not sure how old her vehicle is, but I think it's about to fall apart. They are asking for increase in travel and training to reflect continuing education requirements. And also the beach, you'll see the beach ranger program is expanding and increasing, but you'll see those expenses in the B part fund when we get there. But they just oversee this they oversee that. And if you have anything you would like to add, Tim?
Rhonda's vehicle is 14 years old. We have two vehicles in the building inspections, and the average age is 11 years old.
So she's currently driving a pickup as well, Tim?
Yeah, she drives a
Okay.
pickup as well.
And we, same,
Yeah, and the equipment that she carries is getting wet in the back, and after having to, watch what's going on there, I just thought it would be better if she had an SUV. Because sometimes she has to carry people from Campbell, sometimes she carries contractors with her, because we're walking toe with the dunes, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff, sometimes she has to carry other equipment. But it's just better for the stuff that she carries not to get wet, and it's in the back, so.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And that truck, when it was bought, I'm gonna still go ahead and give you a physical aspect of it. It's an F-150 highboy. When it was bought, long before I got here, don't know why the town would buy an F-150 highboy, but, you know, Rhonda is tall, but the tailgate comes up to, my chest. So it's hard to get stuff in and out of the back of it anyway.
So we're gonna sell that vehicle?
Yeah, I guess we put it on gov deals or something. It's been maintained, but last year, we had quite a bit of problems with it. Now, the Ranger has a lot of problems this year. If you'll notice, one of the line items has gone up in maintenance and repairs. We still don't have a $2,500 bill that's been paid out of that was just done to repair the Ranger. Because, this environment is pretty rough on them. We drive them up and down the beach and up and down the beach, not on the beach, but off the beach, and they still get the same environment. And for some reason, I'll go ahead and tell you, the F-150 is holding up a lot better than that Ranger in this environment. Now, I don't know if it's because I have to drive off on the sandy oceanfront lots to do inspections, you know what I mean? But more so than she does, but she goes on the beach more than I do.
And the contracted services, can you talk to that?
Contracted services, we still got a bill that's gotta be paid out for West Point, so that hasn't come out to $12,500 there. I had the 20,000 in there, maybe a little more last year, we chose to cut it back, and then we had to make a budget amendment this year in order to cover it. So that, historically, that contracted services, we've had some project that's had to come out of it just about every year. I tried to cut it last year, and like I said, we ended up doing a budget amendment to bring it back up.
That's also where your land use plan,
Yeah, you got the Campbell land use plan,
would come from.
we cover some of the hazard mitigation expenses and that kind of stuff that comes out of that. And if we have to have an attorney, somebody decides they want to appeal the decision, we have to have a separate attorney than the Board of Adjustments, or who represents the board of representatives, can't represent both. So,
Okay.
that line item really needs to have some money in it.
So, when you say Ranger, are you talking about an ATV?
No.
No, I have.
Ford.
This small truck.
It's a
Oh, the Ford, okay.
So, yeah, so, okay, there's the equipment purchases, the big,
Can I go back to contracted services? If the land use plan falls within this, is 20,000 gonna be enough for, only
We
because,
don't have, last year when I had some money in there, I knew that West Point project was coming.
yeah,
So we tried to cut it back, and I think there was some unexpected expenses that I hadn't equated for, and so I really didn't advise y'all.
no, I'm not, I'm
What I'm
just,
saying is, to my knowledge, other than the land use plan
there's,
and anything else that might come, there's nothing. But historically, there needs to be
bless you.
money in that line item to cover any contracted services, because building inspection and planning runs into that all the time.
yeah.
So a follow-up to your question, is there any other budget line item that covers another part of the land use plan?
We were swagging that we would just do phase one out of this,
Okay,
this year, and I think,
and it's covered in here only?
yes.
Okay,
My conversations were the 20 to 30,000 range, and we were expecting it to be a shoe-in to get us started if we decided to start doing something.
because it's a multi-year project, right? Okay, awesome, thanks.
Okay. When I look at the cost of group insurance, I guess does each employee, is it the group insurance divided so that whatever the number is divided by the total number of employees,
Yes.
then it seems to me that inspections is being overweighted. There were 2 people in inspections, right?
3.
Oh, there's 3? Okay, I'm
I have
sorry.
an administrative assistant.
Ah, okay. I'm done.
Okay.
Good.
Streets and sanitation. The street paving projects that are in our capital improvement plan, will include Sandspur, Sandpiper, and Sand Dune this year. That is a cost of about $112,000 to pave those roads.
Could I ask a question about that? And I know this is running on a couple-year-old data. Are they being looked at?
There's actually, in the professional services line item there, that's the estimate on having ITRI, an engineering estimate to come in and recalibrate that
Yeah,
study for us.
The third bullet down says update
Okay.
pavement management plan.
Oh, sorry. Didn't
okay.
Get there. I'm looking at the details.
Hey, look at,
Peter, we had actually, last year, we kind of rearranged a few because it looked like they got out of line from what we were seeing, and that was thinking, we were gonna get the whole plan reevaluated, but the streets that are on there this year, they definitely, I feel.
Okay, so we are looking, we're constantly looking at
yeah,
that.
well, yeah,
Plan, okay,
and
good.
plus recalibrating that, assessment. Remember, we're taking care of the Point West, stormwater issues out there, and we'll be able to work that back in because we'd called time out on the Point West Street, Tidewater being the next street up until we got that figured, so we'll be able to work that back in.
Okay, great.
Or that's my understanding of what we're trying to do.
Streetlights are going in, they look awesome. Oh, speaking of streetlights, I've had a request from at least one person that it's shining right in their bedroom. Is there any way that people can communicate that, and is there any way they can put a guard or something that's
They normally put a deflector on
But
it.
the
Is
foot-
it one of the Brunswick Electric ones that's shining in?
the new ones? One of the brand-new ones? I guess they're more,
Let me tell you, I went through that several times with Brunswick Electric in the past. They're basically exempt from a whole lot of stuff, because they're in that utility easement. But they have shielded them in the past when we've asked them to.
Okay, so-
And that's the older ones. I've seen those new ones, I'm not real sure, because they're designed to shine straight down.
I'm just telling you.
Is it an older one maybe?
No, it's a new one. It was a new one. I forget what street I was on, what was it? They were painting next door, and the guy came out.
I'll get with Brunswick Electric and see what we can do.
Awesome. Thanks.
You guys have any other questions?
Is the recycling in the next?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a
Send
question
us-
for Mr. Clemens. The vacuum truck, did we get that repaired? Is it up and,
Yes, sir, it's 100%.
okay, all right. Thanks.
Are we going on to the next one?
If you don't have any questions on page 13, I'm sorry, 14?
Same, I guess, can you talk about contracted services? Chris?
Page 13.
14.
14. Third up from the bottom.
What, just give us a description of what's,
Contracted service right there, part of that right there is a yard of Steve Mercer's yard debris picked up.
okay.
But so is something happening, or we got a fourth quarter big expenditure that, you had 28.4 last year, again this year, but we've only spent 8,500?
Well, we're not through the end of the year, yet it was also.
No, but you're 3/4 of the way through.
The yard crew just picked up March, April, May.
Okay, so it'd be,
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't
Okay.
started yet.
and the recycling program, are you expecting it to fall off? 'Cause we're reducing from the actual from this year? I thought it was growing. Am I wrong?
Well, I'm not sure you guys have really made a decision about the recycling yet, so this number is based on a calculation that we've done. But we don't have a expense there. That expense is a placeholder because we don't know what the expense is gonna be because we don't have a decision from the board how you guys are gonna move forward with the trash talk.
Well, this is, yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, I don't know the best way to say it, my brain is fried.
Yeah, I mean, we've got the question of wet trash season, and then we've got
Yeah.
the question of how we do the recycle program and what that season would be if we choose to do weekly during season and then bi-weekly the rest of the year. And this, unless David objects, this probably is as good a time as any for us to have some discussion and make some decisions where we're gonna go, because it will impact starting next January.
Yeah, it'll also impact your budget, and
Correct.
if we're in the expense workshop, we might wanna talk about how this is gonna affect this.
Well, yard debris that we just had the same conversation is also in that mix, right?
And so what are the expenses that we incur for the recycling?
They pay, help me out, Margaret, they pay
It's-
$54 per can.
That's us.
Us.
That's us, they pay $50. I don't know how much. they pay.
It's
$54.
the,
The citizen pays $54
Yeah.
a can, and Waste Industries charges us
48.
48.
So how do you have an expense then of 20,000?
because they pay us, and then Waste Industry bills us, so we have to pay them.
But you're a plus on every single one by $5. So how does that become an expense?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Every time you do a blue can, I
Right.
pay you 54, you spend 50, you make 4 profit.
Right.
How do you end up with 20,000 in expenses?
Because we've had several come in since the beginning of the year on the expense side that we've had to pay out.
Yeah, so
I don't get it.
it's going through the town. You know, your $54 is coming through the town. That's why
And they're keeping 4 of it, or 5 of it,
6,
yeah.
6, if my math is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think the biggest question is, you know, the middle column has 20,134. I would expect the
Yeah.
future budget would be more
That-
than that.
That 18,174 is based on 377. That was the calculation that we made.
But I still don't get how we end up
And-
with an expense.
But
David,
Because it's charged to
let me try to
us.
answer, John. Let me try to answer, John.
I was gonna ask you a
Yeah,
simple
we
question.
get a bill from Waste Industries. That's how we get the bill. We collect the money from the citizen over time, and then we get a bill from Waste Industries,
So
and
you
we pay
count
them.
the money.
We're the
we give you as
middleman
You count the money we give you as income, so that's
on the
income
revenue side,
Yeah,
on the revenue
yeah.
side.
Okay, so
That's
it's on the
correct.
revenue, and this offsets the revenue that
Yeah.
you get from us.
So you,
Almost.
Mike and Peter are each paying the town $54, and we're acting as the middleman, and Waste Industries gives us your bill, and the town pays your bill.
And you end up with a negative on that, because you have an expense of only, that's not, is that
No,
enough for
if you look at the,
350 cans?
if you look at the revenue
Look at
side,
revenue.
Yeah.
there's like $21,000 on the revenue side.
Yeah, $6 times
Yeah.
370.
It's the same way we do the
20,
county water, isn't it?
60.
John, I'll,
Yeah,
I mean,
okay, just,
there's no.
another big vote.
It wasn't on the revenue last time.
Well, the revenue collected today is around $20,000, so.
Gotcha,
we
okay.
have- So
Okay.
it's an offset.
So what we really need to try to determine is what are we going to give the citizens in starting in 2019 for a recycle program?
Are you talking calendar year,
Yes, I'm
2019?
I'm talking calendar year because, I don't think trying to make a mid-season switch when people have already paid a set amount for their can and a schedule would work very well, just my guess.
Don't we also have to consider, one of the recommendations through the recycling was to stop the rollback just on
Well,
Ocean Boulevard, so
that's a separate issue from the recycle that I,
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
understand, but I'm saying while we're discussing,
yes.
we should discuss
I-
that
I
as well.
think, I think that too, because that should, I don't know exactly what line that appears in,
I
but
don't know if it appears.
That's in the B part.
in the B
Fine.
part, okay.
Well, it was, I believe the discussion, not only on rollback, was terminating it. That's what the study said. But then there was also a counter discussion to expanding it to everyone. And of course, that is directly related to the discussion for expanding recycling, because if you were to add more cans, it's a directly driven cost for the rollback. If you got more cans and
Yeah,
you're gonna expand rollback, both of those increase.
okay. So back to recycling, specifically blue can recycling. What is, this year, through this season, through the end of this year, the cans and the service are paid for. It was $54 per can, people have them, they know what to expect. But starting next January, there will be either the same program, an expanded program, or a totally new program where people have to opt out. That's my memory of where we left the options. And each of those are gonna have different costs. So what is the most, what is the most logical step to take at this point in time for next year recycle? I have my opinion.
Yeah, you're asking for, my opinion is to keep it the way it is.
My opinion is to expand it to Saturday weekly pickup during season and every other week for the rest of the year, with the idea that that will actually make it useful to the renters instead of, let's just say, a question mark about how useful it is when there's a full bin sitting there for a week after the first group leaves and the next group really doesn't get to use it.
So right now, we do it every other Tuesday,
We
right?
just do it Tuesday, every other week.
Right.
So, and the side thing comes back with that is everybody who's not a rental house, which is all of our permanent residents, will end up paying extra for the summer pickup that they don't need. And Blue Can is a voluntary thing. So I'm not sure what would happen if we told the rental houses, you have to pick up the tab for the second pickup. Only rental houses, because they're the only ones that need it. And my guess is they probably wouldn't do it.
Well, no, and that wouldn't work anyway, because you can't guarantee that a full-time resident wouldn't occasionally put their can out on Saturday. So I don't think you can do it that way. I think it's gotta be an all or nothing. We have, remember, David did the, looking at everything, and we actually had more rental houses than permanent houses, buying into the program. I've had quite a few people talk to me about it would be more attractive for rental houses if they knew it was going to be picked up every week.
Have we done do we have the data? Is the company willing to do every week only during the summer on Saturdays?
We,
Can I, sorry?
please, go ahead, yeah.
They are willing to do every week just during the summer, but Saturday was not an option at the time when we broached the subject. And they wanted it to be Tuesdays only, they don't have enough manpower on Saturday is what they told us.
Okay. And what was the cost differential?
Cost would be,
It's $54 now to the
currently May 15th through September 15th, and then bi-weekly for the rest of the year. And it's subscription-based like we do it now. It's $5, well, that's per month. It'd be $68.76 annually. And we add a few extra dollar charge to it, so it'd be a little over 70, depending on how much they added. But $68.76 per person. That'd be for summer months, weekly, and then bi-weekly the rest of the year.
So you're gonna add on top of the 6 they already had?
50%.
No, it's like, it's 54 now. It would
Right.
go up to 68.
No.
No,
The
you-
cost,
68, and then you
the
said you're gonna
cost
add
to the
$2.70.
town now, the cost to the town is $48.
Correct.
The town adds $6 to that. The charge to the town that she's quoting is 68 and some change, okay? 68 is the same as the 48 currently, and we would add this $6 on top of that, so you might as well say $75 that the
Okay,
town
that's
would
what,
charge.
I wasn't, that's what I was asking, whether that $6 was in that or not, thank you.
Right, you're not doubling up on the $6,
So we're basically adding $20.
$20. Right, but I think the important thing there.
40% increase.
Yeah,
The important thing there, and we actually, I think in that solid waste study, actually demarked that in terms of numbers of pickups. And the numbers of pickups, the 40% increase, and I'd have to look at the study again, but it was a logical progression, a straight time progression. You pay 40% more, you get 40% more pickups, because you're doubling up in the summertime.
Yep, okay, good.
But the important piece of that, in that discussion, is that it would still be on a subscription based.
Yes, yes. And then the question is whether or not we achieve what the rental property people would like by having it on Tuesday instead of Saturday. Is that a downside, or is it sort of, it really doesn't make that much difference?
Yeah, well, they don't have the capability of doing it on Saturdays.
No, I understand that, but that's also, I mean, that's also part of the decision-making.
Right, understood, yeah. But I can't believe that people aren't doing it because of either the $54 or $75 yearly, but maybe, I don't know.
Well, there are benefits to the island for everybody. Because the houses, it's cleaner on the street, it looks better.
All right,
If you're in real estate, you would think, okay, it's a more desirable place to live because it's nice and clean and neat.
I have a can, and it
So for
wouldn't,
$20 a year,
wouldn't
I
deter
wouldn't
me
argue
from
with $20.
renewing, the extra 40%. But like you're saying, I don't fill up my can like I don't have 20 people living at my house every week. But the whole idea is this would attract more rental participation in the program.
That was one of the concepts, and one of the things that people who own rental houses have been saying is, it really doesn't make sense for us to have it if they're only picking up every other week because it sits there full. I mean, there is nothing that says we have to do this, but we could do it for a year and see whether or not we really get anything out of it. And if we don't get much increase, and if it doesn't seem to have helped the issue, then we can go back to the previous $54 roughly and every other week, and we are no really worse off. We've tried to respond to the rental property owners and to trying to get more recycling out there. And if it doesn't work, we'll just go back to what it was.
Just keep in mind that that's a contract relationship with Waste Industries. And if I remember correctly, I'd have to check. And now, they've been real good to work
Yeah.
with on amending the terms of the contract. I want to say that that's a 3-year contract, but it's really premised on, that 3 years is really premised on tying an inflationary rate, like 1.5 to the solid waste contract, not so much on the recycling subscription side. So, I mean, it's just something that we would have to have to take into consideration. I think it would be okay to assume that we could just drop back to a different type of subscription setup, but again, those terms would be a function of what we could get Waste Industries to amend that existing contract
So
for.
it's not a guarantee, basically.
I mean,
But
we've
it's
been
more-
told, you know, they've quoted us what it would be to up the service some, so I just wanted to make sure that we're registering that fact.
I understand, and we could approach them and say that we would like to do basically a one-year test run before doing a 3-year commitment, and I'm sure that, well, they would, I'm sure, understand our desire to do a 1-year. Whether they would let us or not is another question.
Well, I mean, they're wanting business too.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's a number of benefits associated with this program and the recommendation, you know, for the summertime.
But you could make it even more beneficial if we said that one of your black cans can be replaced by this blue can, which is, the black cans is $25 more expensive than the new blue can. So they would actually save money not having to have an extra can.
But,
So that extra can can
but
be,
if they
blue.
need more recyclable, it seems to me that they would need more regular trash pickup. So if you take one of the regular cans away, won't they have more regular, you're
Yeah.
kind of just shifting the problem, I think.
you have to have so many cans per
bedroom.
bedroom.
Excuse me just a minute. Madam Clerk, for the record, it's 10:03. I'm going to pass the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. One other consideration, as we were discussing it, I would think that if we're considering not doing a rollback anymore, that a lot of the people, when they leave on Saturday, whether the pickup is Tuesday or Wednesday or Monday, they're gonna roll that blue can out on Saturday, and now it's gonna be laying out on the avenues and out on the street for 2 days before it gets picked up. So, just another consideration you have. Well, I'm in charge.
You're in-
It's a workshop.
What is the board's,
It's a public workshop.
Yeah, yeah.
let's go.
David's approach to this whole thing was it's holistic, they're all interrelated.
Right.
I would recommend that we schedule a special meeting to discuss all of the aspects of the solid waste and then come to some, instead of piecemeal doing it. That was the approach that he took to the group that he put together, because they're all interrelated. If you do one thing, it's gonna affect the other thing. So,
Yeah, and that's what Mike's saying too, right? They're all
so we really have enough on to do with the.
budget.
Budget, that really should be a separate meeting, in my opinion.
Yeah,
As complicated as it's getting, I agree.
I agree,
Well,
right?
I mean, if
Good
it-
try.
We were trying to avoid another special
Yeah,
meeting.
But
That's,
if it gives the board any solace, the fact that you could adopt a budget without those considerations in it, and you have time to work the contract amendments into, if you're looking at a 1 January start date of whatever we do, you have time to work that in. And it would also include any considerations beyond the voluntary subscription service that would allow you to make a determination if you wanted to provide recycling on an island-wide basis and how to fund it also, whether you're funding it, you know, straight out of pocket or in whichever fund. So, I mean, I'm not trying to tell you to punt, but you do have options between the budget adoption and when the subscription service would be re-upped in January.
Yeah, I think they are totally interrelated, and I like the idea of that John's saying that one could replace, but the other part of that being related is, I don't think the ordinance is being followed by a lot. And it will also have effect if, you know, we eliminate the rollback, so yeah, I think, you know, unfortunately.
The new 11-bedroom house is gonna need 6 cans, black, no blues. They're gonna produce predominantly recyclable materials. It's plastic cans, metal cans, paper, glass. The bags are full of that stuff at most of the rental houses. They're not full of solid waste. There's not really stuff that's going to be buried.
Yeah.
So at some point, we could say maybe the third can and above can be used, a blue instead of one of those browns, instead of the black ones.
And it encourages recycling, which is a good
It
thing.
encourages recycling. Doesn't require it, but it
Right.
encourages it. And it's actually cheaper on them for that
Right.
extra can.
So
Well,
But we have to
But-
enforce
Yeah,
the number of
well,
cans to begin
think
with.
about that.
could we then save all of these great thoughts for a
Yep.
special
Special
meeting?
meeting, yeah.
Take note,
I'm good with that.
and let's move on.
Fund 30 is our water and sewer fund. Services Department is asking for 2 Dodge F-1500 trucks. The capital outlay line there includes, let me find it, water sewer locating equipment, and then also you'll see that capital outlay at 1.4, it also shows the improvements to the sewer lift station 4. And then you'll also see in there new line items contribution to CRF fund, and that's the water sewer contribution to the capital reserve fund that we have to do per HB 436.
So the obvious question, Chris, you're retiring 2 vehicles, or are these net new?
I just retired too, actually, yeah.
And you usually get the hand-me-downs from the police department anyway, don't you?
Well, I've tried that one time, and it's 50-50 shot, just rolling the dice, you post the money away in a hurry, you still not have anything, but the 2 will replace it. It's 2 that was actually purchased in 2006, about the same time Ron's truck was purchased, so they're getting some years on them and starting to develop cancer. So we just kind of rolled them out the door. I do have one of the old police trucks now, and I'm trying to see, I'm still in the middle of the road, about whether to keep it or not, and probably have one that I need to sell right now, and replace those 2, I'll have 2 more just going out the door.
I would like to bring it to the board's attention, the capital outlay major equipment sewer, that's page 19, about the middle line item. That's a good example, excuse me, of how, John, you've pointed out that we had a budget, didn't execute it in the current year, and then we've basically rolled it across to the next year. What we're anticipating is being under contract for the lift station upgrade by the end of the year. So, you know, that may or may not roll across in that form. It just may be a prior year encumbrance. But that's a good example of where we haven't actualized either an expense or an encumbrance there.
Also too, when you, water and sewer locating equipment, that's actually the purchase of, ground penetrating radar unit where you can actually physically go out on any property and you can see what's in the ground before you dig. And we also have some funding for some GIS mapping where we can get all our stuff mapped on GIS, where we had a storm event or something like that, that we didn't have any barriers or anything to go over that we could.
So I'm a little confused, because so the M&R equipment on page 17, you budgeted 7,500, you spent 100. What, are you gonna spend that 7,500 in this, between now and the end of this budget?
Not that I know of.
Or the end of the
Computers
current
or
budget?
Something like that to go off of, because I'm sort of just like, everybody else, we do have 3 or 4 different computers within the department, and also the GIS stuff I'm talking about, you have equipment that goes with that. The plus got water equipment, like handhelds and stuff like that, that we use in the field, and some of that.
So what happens to that 7,400?
Falls back in the undesignated fund balance.
We get it back.
Well, you didn't never spend it to begin with.
Right.
In this budget here, have we I believe that our schedule is that we're going to finish with lift station number 4. We're going to complete that during the fiscal year. have we allocated funds for the next lift station, for the professional services, for the drafting, for the items that we've paid for to have lift station 4 done? Have we allocated funds for that? Because that process should begin
First half
during
next
this
year.
fiscal year, this coming fiscal year.
That's a good point, and it's not included in this number to my knowledge. But normally what we do is, we would budget 15% more for, administrative service, just as a programming factor. In this case, we're gonna have the benefit of existing, work, but also, the benefit of what are the tweaks that we wanna do. So, yeah, we need to include a programming factor for those follow-on in there.
And the contribution to CRF water and sewer, those are brand new?
Yes, those are what we have to transfer the revenues to. That will be a contribution from the revenues that we collect. This is the expense, we'll have to transfer it to a capital reserve fund,
Peter, this is
the House Bill 430.
this is House Bill 436,
Okay, thank
the anticipated capacity fee recoups.
And that 173 you see there is based on, they say they estimated about 30 homes a year, so we calculated the 5,000 charge times 30
And-
as the estimate.
Yeah, those numbers are inverse, by the way. The water number goes with 173, and the 14,000 goes with the sewer.
And
Oh,
there,
yeah, whoops, sorry.
and there's a corresponding revenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, okay. Line? Okay.
Any more questions? You ready to move on to B part? Okay, B part. There is a new expense for researching sand source borrow sites. The beautification expenses for landscaping at Bridgeview Park. The increase in access and recreation is due to, a few things like updating pet waste stations and the beach mats. There is a new line internship, they are requesting an intern for the summer months. I think that's around $4,000. I've lost my place on my sheet here, and then the expense of the initial $3 million that you guys voted for to transfer to the capital reserve fund, which you named the Beach Renourishment Inlet Management Fund.
Okay, I see that. I'm looking, research. Where is the new expense for researching and,
It
Sand source.
is,
Sand source.
there is a
Page
line,
22.
22.
22?
It says sand source data collection. It's at the bottom. 3, 4
Yep.
from the bottom.
Wow.
132.
That's a big number.
Directly from Fran. His numbers were, based on last time's numbers, and then, 5% to Tidewater for, it being, they probably increased expenses, but 60,000 for Bible core sampling, 12,000 for mauve, Tidewater, plus 5% is 30,000, and sonographic measurements at 30,000 to equal to 132.
Big number. And beautification,
Yeah,
Is that-
that's just to point out that all the money they're asking for this time, other than their $500 donation that we normally give this to the club, is to do the landscaping at Bridgeview Park. That's what that's really about.
and that's called out here?
It's in the beautification line on page 21.
It's about halfway down.
Halfway down.
Oh, I see it.
Under rec programs, and it
Yep.
says 11.5.
And the beach equipment maintenance, why are we maintaining at $34,000 of equipment on the beach?
Why part of that goes with the training program, I think, and the other,
The $34,000, that's, Chris has requested a, military dump truck. He can, speak to that, but it would be for BPAR purposes.
I actually want to purchase something like a military truck that's all-wheel drive, that we could go out on the beach and clean up lumber and debris and stuff like that. Now we're pretty much reduced to hand loading stuff and pickup trucks and like that. It's, be a real big help after a storm. We get all these tires and stuff washed up, because it's pretty timely, so I'm loading that stuff in a truck, and I could just throw it in a dump truck and go. And that price is actually a refurb used military truck. I may can find something cheaper than that, but at the time I was doing the search, I found one that was about that price. So I may find one for 20 or maybe 30, but that's the options that I seen that was available, so that's the reason I programmed that number in. I think it'd be a real good addition to the town. You never know, we may have something out there that's pretty massive. You need some equipment to be able to take care of that in a hurry.
and actually, I'm sorry, I just misspoke. I forgot that Tim's got pulled out into a separate line for the beach ranger, so that all those costs could be under that title. But in the past, that's what we pulled it from. If we needed to do any, maintenance on that UTV that they use out on the beach, we would use it in that line. But this year, it's all together, 3 lines on page 23, so that in the future, we can see actually how much that program is costing, instead of it being embedded in the other line.
The total cost of the whole program is $48,000.
And does that increase from, we talked about it increasing,
The number of people and the number of trips. We're gonna run 2 shifts during the day.
Good.
Yeah, and we're increasing the people by 1. Only adding 1 person. We had 3 last year. We
Right.
were gonna run 4 last year, but with the money we have, we can only run them 1 time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we had enough money that we could actually double up on the holidays. This year, we should be able to have 2 shifts during the day. And believe it or not, one of the beach rangers from last year approached me and said that most of the violations were actually starting when they were quitting. So it is imperative that we have someone out there, you know, on that second shift up until dark, so we can catch the dogs, other stuff that's happening when they're going home. So, get the full day.
That program starts Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, we actually had 2 coming in for training the week before.
Okay.
I'm scheduled to take the UTV that we have to go get serviced. And I'm currently getting prices on another UTV. That UTV won't be purchased until
1 July.
1 July.
oh, you're purchasing one before you rented, right?
No, we owned one, we already had one. We didn't have to purchase one, we already had one. We did do a bunch of work to it, it cost us quite a bit of money to get it in workable condition. I carried it back and forth to Southeastern, John Deere and Michael numerous times until we got it working properly, but we have it in the budget to purchase another. I'm actually looking at prices on them right now.
So Tim, after they're used on the beach, do you hose them off?
Part of we give them a packet, and part of their process is that they wash them before they go and after they come off.
I've seen it.
Yeah,
But
we
do
wash-
they
They
use,
do it
are they
right
using salt away?
No,
Have you got a salt away system?
no, I don't know what
The
salt
tur-
weight
the
is.
turtle
We're washing them with fresh water, you know, that's.
Well, but the Turtle Patrol has had terrible experience with the ATVs rusting.
Mhm,
They switched a couple of years ago to rinsing it with salt away first,
mhm.
and then put it away. And we have no more rust anymore underneath the
One thing
vehicles.
that we use is, and it's something that I've always used, is we actually use a liquid soap that's non-detergent. And it seems to, people have always used that in the past to keep salt water from rusting stuff. It's always worked. I also took the UTV myself, I also do my own truck, and I actually undercoat those vehicles. We undercoat them. And I'll do it again this year before we start again. But, and that seems to work. I didn't notice any amount of extreme rust on that equipment last year, but, and that was one of the things that we highlighted was that we wash it off
Yeah.
after every use.
So Tim,
I-
what time, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, finish.
what time of day is the coverage going to be on the beach?
It was last year, it was from 9 to 2. This year will probably be from 9 to 2 and 2 to 7.
Okay.
That's the
Yeah,
way.
that works.
I think we're gonna run it.
Yeah. That's good.
So 10 hours a day.
Yeah, be 10 hours a day, be 2 shifts. Keep it, I mean, it's hard to go out there, and people, I know that sounds like a fun job, but if you stay in that sun all day, in that heavy heat, I can't even, I have a Jeep that's designed to run in the most extreme conditions you can possibly, I built it just for that. If you wanna see it fail, take it on that beach. That is some of the hottest environment to put a person or a vehicle in and run in slow motion. Not in all that stuff.
So just if I do the quick math, we're gonna do 10 hours a day, 4 people, that's 40 hours a day, 7 days.
No. There'll be individual by themselves, so there'll be 2 people on one day.
Okay, so 20 hours a day.
They're working 5 hours apiece, and then only on the holidays do we double up.
Okay.
We send them out there as a team on the holidays.
Okay.
Because there's so many people, we need the extra eyes, and there's so many violations and so many holes. They filled so many holes last year, you couldn't imagine. It was I gave the tally to y'all, it was a astronomical amount of holes. And they ended up doing some work. There's some days when they're filling holes. It was so funny last year when we took them out for training, it was a day like today when there shouldn't have been more than 35 people out there, and there was literally 2 grown men who had dug a hole straight down and was standing in it. And so they're doing that on a regular basis out there digging those holes. And those girls will come out and ask them to fill them up. If they don't, those girls have actually been filling those holes. They have shovels and equipment and stuff to do that with.
I'd like to get the board's guidance on, because this program, I think the important piece is that it will be facilitated by this budget on the 1st of July. If there's a desire to start that earlier, we're not funded for it currently. We're just, it's the upstart from Memorial Day, through the end of June, so that's a month. That's where we're funded at now with the single vehicle and the current budgeted manpower. So we're not fully staffed yet, and I want to just make sure that registers with y'all.
Right. If we were to go to that and implement that program, what would be the additional expense?
You're
Roughly.
looking, to get you into July 1st.
Right.
You're gonna have the vehicle purchase up first.
Yeah, the UTV is gonna be the largest expense, and the quotes I'm getting, depending on which one you want, low end or high end, goes from 8 to 10 for the type of UTV that we need. And we don't need anything fancy, because them things get high dollar. But we could get one just for, to run on the beach, to get them out there and get them back into that price range. And then, of course, it's easy to calculate the salary amount.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the number right now, I'm just saying that, maybe it's a decision that we could make once we have a number.
Well, if y'all want me to do that, I'll bring it back on it.
Because it is a worthwhile program.
I have one question, being an accountant. How did you get the $8,971,000?
That was my fault. I was in a clerical error, I know, I'm
Because I kept
sorry.
adding it up and it never
I know,
added up.
It's not funny, but it's irritating. That is actually the FEMA Matthew and part of money, but since those expenses are going away, you see, I just moved the lines up to make the spreadsheet cleaner. So they just got cut off the spreadsheet, but they're 5.9, and then the part of was, I can find it. Chrissy $247,000. So it's just,
You probably set a record with a $3 million mistake.
so I just cut them off to make the spreadsheet cleaner because we're not gonna have those expenses.
That's one way to cut
Next year.
expenses.
Just cut them out.
Do that on the revenue side.
I have a
Yeah, I know.
a list of questions, actually. Professional services on the middle of page 21, what's that? We budgeted 65,000, spent 18,365, and now we're budgeting 50. What's in that?
If we're required to do monitoring, a lot of that, and also like, debris removal, things that we didn't spend as much on this year, what we were able to capture in Matthew and get reimbursable. But if monitoring next year, then we need to account for that. Or if we have to, if the state makes us come in and do anything on the project. So it was covered under Matthew for anything that we had to do right now, but, we still, I took it down, but we still need to leave some money in there for professional services for any monitoring that we have to do.
That's a permit requirement, Peter.
Okay. Yeah, and, you know, the same goes for, you know, the next few lines, to be honest with you. How about east end shore protection?
I think y'all are gonna take care of that.
That's what that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what that is.
So that will be, okay. ATM contract fees, same? Professional services, beach, same?
ATM contract fees, that's pretty much the annual beach monitoring
That's
report.
annual, okay.
We don't have this bill yet, because they do them in April.
Okay, so we expect that to.
You done?
The Jordan Boulevard, 40,000?
Yeah, that's going up because we need to do some repairs to that fishing pier down there beside the pavilion station itself, Jordan Boulevard
Yep,
down here.
yep, yep.
That we gotta put on, and then also, now that we have taken over maintenance of the north side of the bridge, there's, the contractor's gonna have to put extra mulch out more than he anticipated in his landscape contract, so.
Yeah, we're calling the other side of the bridge Jordan
Jordan
Boulevard
Boulevard?
because that's the
Okay,
extension
okay.
for the,
And then the equipment maintenance, for the beach, equipment maintenance at the bottom of that page,
That was his truck.
that was your truck. Are you replacing the trash cans? Did I see,
Yeah,
did I see that?
this is our first year of, those blue barrels, plastic barrels.
Awesome,
Try to
awesome.
use those right there, because the cans that you get now are metal, and
Yeah, they don't,
get them rust out within 6 months.
right, right.
Those weren't quite as big as we like, there's, that we'd like to have, but, I'm gonna try to get some more, and eventually get them all the way.
Okay, yeah, I
Well,
thought I
you
saw
might
that.
appreciate that a number of calls have come that, how come we didn't get one?
Well,
How come they get the blue ones? How did you decide to do blue there and, or those old ugly cans in front of our house?
Just blame it on
it
Chris.
sort of goes
That's-
with the car, where the most trash was at, that's where we put the bigger cans and we're working our way. Working out our way, west. But this upcoming year, I'll basically get them all. And plus, it was a trial basis, because the fellow that did these, they'll let you know if they don't dump just right, and it's too heavy, and, you know.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And the gas, oil, and tires, which vehicle is that?
And then truck that we take out on.
Okay, okay. Okay. I'm done with that page, Joe.
And, I just had a question on Jordan Boulevard. You know, we're doing a number of different things on parking, phase one for parking. But one of the other phases, and just kind of keep this in the back of our head, is that the organization of parking on Jordan Boulevard, when you come off the main street and you go down Jordan, it looks nice on the left-hand side, but, you know, it just doesn't make a really a good presentation. Do we have any thoughts about organization of parking on Jordan Boulevard as a whole?
I've had some thoughts of it, but I haven't got anything edged in stone, but I think we do have room for improvement right there. I think we could probably
Right.
do some things that, I don't know that we could completely mirror it, but I'm sure we could do something to kind of clean it up. Research that.
Yeah, because I'd like to discuss that further after we get through the phase one of the process, the parking process for phase two, but,
Yeah.
so, I don't know whether we want to swag a number in there to do something, or just,
Well, I can't come up with a number
Okay.
today, we can give it some thought, but I think if anything, if we have any available property there to work out some post of road from some minor grading, you know, and kind of ease it that way. I'll
But-
do whatever you'd like.
But that's a good question, because there's other things, you know, there's signage that we're gonna talk about on Tuesday related to parking. Is any of that in this budget?
I accounted for some of that information.
Okay. And we're gonna do it now versus July 1st, right? So,
And I accounted for some of it in my budget as well.
yeah, that's the,
Professional
that's,
services, I've accounted for some land use map
be
So
done.
are we in any
Yeah.
position to do anything about that lot along Jordan that has the pilings in from years ago? Can you do that to a lot?
There's
Can
not
you,
anything you can do. There's not anything we can do. As long as they come in here on an annual basis and show that they have done anything whatsoever, you cannot invalidate that permit under statutory law.
so a building permit is forever?
A building permit is forever if you don't abandon it. If they can prove that they had even bought a native, the Department of Insurance will not allow me to invalidate that. Now, if they abandon it, and you approve that they, and you can prove that they abandoned it for 1 year, you can void the permit, and then they're bound to meet all requirements. But, the problem is that they have a calendar running, and almost on the clock, they'll come do something. They'll come 1 year and they'll add some plumbing out there and get a meter installed or something. They'll come next year and put up one horizontal band. And it's not, the bad thing about it is it looks bad. You think about it as being bad, but that particular law protects a lot of people, especially poor people who want to build their own house.
Take a while
It
to do
takes
it.
them 10 to 12 years, as long as they don't abandon it. I will give you a specific case. We got one of them here on the beach, but I'll give you one better than that. The county has since bought it, but when I was at Carolina Shores, there was a topless bar being built out on 17. It took them about 6 or 7 years. They didn't come in for any inspections or anything for over a 2-year period. I revoked the permit. There had been no activity on it for 2 years. They walked in with an attorney into DOI in front of the Building Code Council and laid down a receipt where they bought a lock for the gate. And it proved they had not abandoned the site, and I had to reopen the permit. Over here on the beach, we have a house that's been built since, I think, the early 2002, 2003. They might do 1 or 2 things on it a year. The building official in 2008 tried to revoke the permit. They showed up and said that they had never unhooked the power from the temporary pole at the street, although they hadn't done anything, and DOI made them reissue. The law is pretty clear, as long as you don't abandon it for more than a year. Doesn't even say you have to drive a nail, you just got to prove that you're doing something to it, bend it, or somehow do it. So, believe me, that when May rolls around every year, I go run and check, because I've been trying to get rid of it since I've been here. So,
I don't see him put his bull on.
yeah, every year, like clockwork, he beats me to the day.
Must have a calendar, it was about the same time.
Yeah, but that was actually on the original list of the 21 that I condemned and the 19 that I got rid of. And believe it or not, I'm still working on that one. I call it pile hinge.
Yeah. Okay,
A tourist site.
I have a couple, on page 22, David, is that beach vegetation, that's, we haven't spent the 50, right? And that, we're just pushing another 20 into the next, okay. Festival and security, I mean, is that not in police already? And we have $16 we spent?
We avoided, that's really festivals and security. It's not just for the police presence. That would be trash that we would have to get, overflow our guys in support of that. That's what we've historically used it for.
It is, and the reason that it stayed at that amount is that they are this past time, they investigated a ramp system to help them out with trash. They didn't proceed with it, but they've, looked at Ocean Island, how they do it at the Oyster Festival, and they may want to rent that kind of system, so that's why it stayed at the same amount. There's somebody that Ocean Isle rents from that we've talked to, and he would investigate further coming here if it makes their lives easier, they just have to decide that.
Okay. Contributions, B-part donations?
Same protocol that we use on making the donations to different agencies. we hold those till late in the year before we release them.
I'm assuming the waste industries, that's just they're,
That's the second pickup.
yeah, they're charging us more, right?
Are we doing an extra week?
I think that increase came in, and Chris, you can help me with some of these figures, if that came from some of your math, but with, Steve Mercer. The increase from 80 to 85.
Part of it, was second pickup last year, I thought that, I was thinking that, when I bid the contract, I was thinking that we quit in September, and we actually get garbage right on through September. So that right there, he was short a few pickups there, and also there was a slight percentage in cost that, we added to it. So that's the reason we see that.
Remember, this is a new contract.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
went on in the past
Yep.
that this year's the budgeted number was predicated on historical
Right.
expense. And what we're predicating the 85 on is the full, May through September, all the pickups.
So it didn't have none, it didn't have September last year.
Yep, fair enough. How about the sand fence project? What's the? Is
That's-
that rela-
that- that's a-
where is that?
That's a placeholder right now. Well, for next year,
In case we want to put sand fence out, we didn't have to do that this year because it was covered under the Matthew. Because it was a permit condition, they covered the cost of the sand fence that we put down.
So
But
it's a-
historically, we put sand fence out every year if we need to in areas.
as needed, so,
Yeah.
okay.
that's really a minor repair kind of budget for the sand fence.
So just to clarify, if we didn't have the revenue from the rental income, all of these expenses would still have to be paid out of the general fund, right? If you didn't have the revenue, if we didn't have the revenue from B part, we'd have to pay for these out of the general fund. So they're operating expenses of the town. They're just being paid for differently.
Well,
Most-
they're either directly tied to sand, erosion,
Well,
or
but
tourism.
we would do it if we didn't have the B part
Well,
fund.
you may not do it.
Some of them you wouldn't, I
If
would
we,
hope.
if we don't have renters, if we don't have people come to the beach, I think a lot of these things would simply go away.
Or you'd tax people to do them.
Yeah.
People would want it done, and so they'd have to raise their taxes.
Yeah.
I don't think
So
you'd
this is just a funding
well,
scheme.
I don't think you would maintain the island the way it's maintained for less than 1,000 people, to be blunt. That's just a fact, that having 3 or 4 months of a lot of people here taking vacations adds a lot of these things. So, and sand.
Christie, could you tell me, I look at the Lockwood Folly dredging for next year, and simple math, it's twice the amount of this year, the spent so far, more than 3 times the amount that was allocated. How did we come up with that number? What do we base that on?
We're anticipating an increase because it's the second year that falls in with the AIWW contract for the Ben Widener, in case we want to piggyback on that.
Okay. And so,
They don't have their number yet, and they haven't approached us yet, so we don't know quantities. But last year, when we came into the budget hearings, we didn't put anything as a placeholder. And then after discussions that Peter brought up, he wanted us to put something in, so we put an amount in. But this is the year that we would piggyback on that if their contract comes through from the government.
okay.
Is there any sand coming out of any of this 132,000, or 168,000?
Well, the Widener will be pumped on shore, right?
They would use the pipe. like
Okay,
they did last
that, I wanted to make sure that that was,
And any other money set aside for dredging of the inlet?
It's included in that, so it's 84 is what we spent this time that we dredged. So if we had one dredge event, because they're saying, what they keep saying at meetings is you need to anticipate it 4
Right, yep.
So it's anticipating that they do capture a dredge event and then the bin widener one as well.
But if we spent 84,000 on the last one, wouldn't we have to
4 times.
extrapolate that by 4? So that the number
Plus-
would be
plus the
more in the
widener.
$300,000
Yeah, plus the
range?
widener.
We can take that number up, but they didn't get here
No,
quarterly, and I'm not anticipating that their schedule's gonna get them here.
Okay, so the
Yeah,
quarterly
based
is not, doesn't reflect the actual.
What they've actually gotten here.
Okay, yeah.
And what we've had to pay the county back. I think that you may be better off doing a budget amendment if that comes to fruition and the county jumps in and the state jumps in and says, yeah, we are gonna jump onto this and we're gonna do it quarterly, but I don't think so far we've seen that the county bought into that with theirs. And I think you're probably better off going that route than putting a big number in there to begin with and then having extra money in the line.
Yeah, it cuts both ways, yeah.
It's totally up to you guys. I'll be glad to adjust accordingly.
No, I don't think I was looking for an adjustment. I was just trying to figure out what we're looking at in the future, since
Based on what.
we've been contributing more money year after year after year for the dredging, and if that's going to continue into the future, we have to
Prepare for it.
kind of prepare for it.
You're right. One of the economies of doing, and it's not economies of scale, maybe it's economy of effort. What we don't have down in, with a finite understanding is how the inlet crossing dredging with the pipe that puts sand on the beach actually affects the need for dredging the throat of Lockwood Folly with the hopper dredge. One could assume that when you do the crossing, that you get more water going out of the throat, the velocities scour, and that's one thought. The fact is, we don't know.
On sand source collection, this is maybe naive, but do two islands ever go together to sort of share that investigation and costs? Or is it just whoever prepares then is preparing for whoever wants to use it?
The sand source data collection is predicated on being able to use that data in our permit.
I had a little bit different take on that. Are we, is there a possibility that we're collecting data on the same sand source as somebody else is collecting data? And ours or their data collection would be a waste of time if whoever got there first to use it? Isn't that the risk?
What we know is that there's only one active offshore permit in place now, and that sand source that that permit is the town of Holden Beaches, and the sand source that's already identified goes along with that permit. It doesn't give us rights to the sand.
Ownership.
But what we know is that we don't think that there's another couple of million yards to do another project. And what we're trying to do is find alternative sources to roll into our permit, our existing permit.
So this line item is looking for new sand source as well as, okay. And am I wrong in whoever gets there first? It's theirs?
Well, I wouldn't even say that it's whoever gets there first and has a permit. Whoever gets there first has a permit and does the excavation gets the sand.
But do you have to do this data collection? Something that we just blinked. Do you have to do this data collection as part of the permit to be able to excavate, to be able to get, you know? Okay.
There's a whole whole,
Yeah, she gotta reset the recording probably.
yeah.
That's right, go ahead.
There's a whole set of parameters to qualify the sand, to make sure that it's the right type, there's not a hard bottom, it's the right color, that kind of thing. So that's what that data collection does, is it qualifies the sand, ties it directly to a permit.
So would this be in addition to what we saw a couple of weeks ago on the map where they had found 3 or 4 other sources already? Was it Dow Cordy or ATM had found?
Those were investigatory.
Just investigatory.
Investigatories. These are actually.
Not tested yet.
Doing core
Samples.
borings and
Samples.
pulling up tubes of sand.
Qualifying the sand.
yeah, Laboratory analysis.
But we've identified the spot that's off Oak Island that we used for the Central Reach project. That's still there.
Yes, sir.
So, nobody else has a permit currently that can access that site
Yet.
yet? Right. So, do we have a plan somewhere down the line that would require us to use more sand than is in the site that we already have?
That's what this
But
would
I mean, do we
allow us
have-
to develop.
Do we have one now? Do we have a plan?
This would allow us to say that there is sand available to actually go get a permit. What we're trying to do is set up for CRP two.
I got you. But I guess my point is, if somebody else wants to develop and have a large plan, they're gonna have to pay for this. If we're not gonna have to do this for 5 or 10 years, we're gonna pay for the work that somebody else can take advantage of. I mean.
Well, that's a risk.
That's my, yeah.
That's a risk.
That's my
Yeah,
understanding
that's
of
what
what we're
that's the-
talking
Yeah.
about.
That's where I was
And-
going.
And the realities of attaining a permit for CRP two is that it's gonna take 5 years.
Yeah, right.
But it's what we did to Oak Island. When Allen announced, we're gonna take that sand off Oak Island, they're gritting their teeth over there.
Well, it's not Oka, it happens to be, right, it's not theirs.
But I guess we all get, I guess we all get the point. If we had a plan that was going to be put into operation in the next couple of years, I would not hesitate a moment to okay this. But if we have something that's aspirational that we may not do for 10 years, and we spend the money now, why wouldn't we be better off? I mean, it doesn't take that long
Here-
to do this, does it?
And here's the answer.
Okay.
You want to have a shovel-ready permit and project in hand when your next hurricane hits, so that you can immediately go into reconstitution of the beach and get FEMA reimbursements for it.
Okay.
Now, if you don't want to be ready, that's fine,
But you
and to
won't get
plan on 10 years, but your FEMA effort will take 5 years to get the beach back. And one of the reasons we were able to take advantage of of FEMA to work into our CRP project is that not only was the dredge sitting offshore, but we had a permit in play.
Okay.
So that's the logic and
Okay.
the beauty of having a shovel-ready
Then I'll
ready
I'll
permit.
follow up with this. In the past, after a hurricane, what's the average cubic yards of sand that we need to replenish the beach?
We've qualified, depending on what the damages were. In the past, I think there've been 200,000, 100,000, 150,000. I don't think that we've had a large
How many
scale.
cubic yards do we have off of Oak Island?
There's plus 1 million yards.
Okay, so we,
But those have been minor hurricanes, and,
It's
but for
insurance
all
policy.
intents and purposes, up to a major, something we haven't seen yet as far as replenishing after a hurricane, we have a shovel-ready plan in place right now.
I think there's 500,000 yards left on that permit.
Okay, that's all.
Good.
Next is our canal dredging fund. They're in the working group that meets quarterly or now more, because they're anticipating a full dredge, this winter, or the winter of can speak to this more, the dredge pool area expenses are to be determined because the Corps has denied use of, I guess, those two school sites that we have previously used.
They've denied usage, so we're gonna have to look at building, capacity on one of our town-owned properties at this time.
And then I guess the last thing I have to say before you guys go into discussion is there is a capital improvement plan, that you got, it was
Oh.
painted. Yeah, it just wasn't attached to the packet, and that is, you guys typically approve a 10-year plan, and, we've talked about all the things that, today, that are in year 18-19, so you can see those there.
And just the B part, David, on the top, on the revenues by source, is that the B part reserve fund? The 2,561,000?
That 2.5 million is the East Inshore Protection Project, which I think you guys handled.
The
The
grind.
expense is at the
No,
bottom.
I'm looking at the revenue up top, the fifth line, I guess. Is that what is in the B part reserve fund?
Are you under capital improvement plan?
I think I am, yeah.
Yeah, but that's just, these are just expenses that are planned in the future, no income on
Yeah,
it.
so the expenses have to match the revenues.
Yeah.
So the expenses, and so that's the equal, the revenues that we'll have to have in order to,
Yeah, and we're talking, he's got, you have
Oh,
expenses
okay,
and
I see,
revenue.
I see.
You have
I see.
revenue on this sheet,
Yeah,
right?
I
on
see
the
you're
top?
talking about, Pete. That, 2.5 million for the East Inshore
No,
Protection
no, no, no,
Program?
no, I'm way up on top. So it's 2.561, way on top, the fifth line.
It matches the same
It
as on
matches-
the next page.
yeah, you got, if you look on the next page, you'll see the expenses down on the bottom,
One's revenue and one's expense.
And they have to be the same.
and they have to be.
And
the
I'm
same.
asking, so that is not the total B,
No.
B part fund balance?
Would you happen to
That's
know what that
my
balance
estimate
is?
No,
Hmm?
Do you happen to know what the current B-part balance is?
I can get you pretty
That's the
close.
question,
I can-
Yeah, because
Yeah, I can get you pretty close.
it looked, it's a little confusing when you're saying that's the revenue fund for the canal and B part, what is that, right?
So, your June 30 B-part balance was right at 6.46 million.
I just wanted to make sure that wasn't the number that you were saying.
No.
6.6 million.
But you gotta remember that $1.5 million of that is escrowed with Brunswick County. So cash, $5 million.
Okay,
And then 3 of that 5 is going to go into the reserve?
Yes, sir.
Yep, okay.
That concludes what I have to say, so.
I think I wanna point out something, maybe I don't, but maybe I do. The water and sewer, FY 1920 shows generator relocation of 135,000. That should be in the general fund. That, unless, Chris, you're talking about a different generator. I'm talking about that one that's running right now. Yeah, that's not a water and sewer fund expense.
But it is a capital fund.
It's a capital, it's just in the wrong
Capital.
fund.
And you don't have anything here for the general fund, right?
It's all in streets, right? It's just streets.
Oh, I don't have that sheet.
Do you only have one?
I only got one sheet.
Oh, you only got one
Oh, yeah.
page?
Well, there's 2 pages.
Oops.
That's why I wasn't
You got
seeing it.
both, right?
I didn't have a second, I just look at it. Yeah. That one I had.
Has everybody got the right
Yeah,
page?
they had two.
Okay.
They had two.
All right.
Okay.
All right. It's still a capital expense, it's just not capturing the right fund.
Any other questions, comments?
Good, thanks.
I'm good.
Any questions from anybody in the audience?
I do. On the B-Park fund, can you explain who is each project's salary with the overtime, FICA, all that?
That is
Please.
where, that is part, is one of the public works. It's part of the public works person.
That's an attempt to capture the work of the guys in Public Works when they pick up trash in the off-season.
So
And
some of
any-
the salary comes out of the people fund, which is their own beach stream.
And then the contract services for sanitation for $85,000, that's, the contract for trash in the summer?
That's Steve Mercer's contract for his trash pickup that he does and rollbacks.
There's actually 2 parts to his contract, it's part of it, owns, garbage collection, rollback services is in that line item.
Oh, rollback as well? And it's gone up more than 10%? It's gone from 75 to 85, more than 10%.
But part of that was what I was talking about a little bit when I said that, he didn't have all of last year captured, didn't do all of September.
Okay. So we stop rollback, then that number's gonna change.
Yeah, when he bid it out, it was totally my fault, I put on it from Memorial Day to September. If we got into September, he didn't do the whole month of September.
Fair enough.
He ended up cutting
I
ourselves
think
short.
Can you split that between trash pickup and rollback?
Well, if he
Because,
just-
because we might make a decision on rollback. I don't think we're gonna stop.
Part of this is combined, part of it was garbage collection and part of it was rollback service.
In the services contract, it is split, it's bid separately.
It is, okay.
Yeah, we
It's
just
just-
cost
and
it
it's
against
just
that
been
Okay,
same.
that's what
number.
that's,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
just
gross
one
number, but it has 2 pieces.
Garbage
Yeah.
collection, part of it was like 43 something, and then the rollback services is about another 36,
That's-
37,000.
That's why I want to make sure it is split. So if we had to make that decision,
Yeah.
it's clear. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? I'd like to thank everybody who attended, and I'd like to thank you very much for the information, all the hard work you put into it. And if,
Were we gonna talk about the overall, just, at this meeting, were we gonna talk about the salary benefits portion that's in the budget, or are we gonna do that at a separate?
whatever you would like to do.
I mean, Peter, you were asking line
Yeah,
by line, and
I'm
I
okay to
said
do it,
maybe-
I'm okay to do it when we finalize it.
I have one question that I had in here and I didn't ask. Does the town have a policy for vacation accumulation, vacation that wasn't taken? And do we see that showed up as a liability anywhere?
The answer is yes, you're not supposed to accrue more than 30 days.
Okay. And do we, like with the police when they retire or something, are we gonna have some extra payments to make that haven't been set aside yet? Will we have any surprise expenses when somebody retires?
In the audit speaks to the retirement liability, but that's not a function that, I want to say it's like $175,000 that's calculated, but we haven't experienced any of that. But I think that the answer is if somebody has a month's worth of vacation and they retire, that we pay them for their
Yes,
accrued vacation.
Yeah, yeah.
But our policy is
30 days.
written down, and it's in writing.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other question was on pensions. We pay for the pensions for the town staff. Do we also pay 401K?
Well, the town is part of the local government retirement system
Right,
and makes contributions.
Right.
Everybody makes.
Is the 401K separate?
For the police department, there's a mandatory 5% contribution for the police employees. And then, in addition to that, normal employees, there's a voluntary participation that the town has opted to match.
So that's a 401K?
Yeah, that's 401K. And then the police department can voluntarily match, in addition to the mandatory contribution, they have the option to make a contribution of up to 5%. too.
Which we would match.
One last.
Is that right, Margaret?
We have been traditionally treating staff and town manager salaries separately. Is that still the case, or is,
It's in that same admin line.
okay?
It's in the manager salaries in the admin line.
Okay.
I have a question on the whole process then. Will we not see, another draft of this before the budget message or at the end of May, or is this it?
The budget message is due May 31st.
Right, so will there be anything prior to that, or is it?
That was what the board approved, that's the schedule that the board approved. So, yes.
There's not anything scheduled. I mean,
Okay.
I'm looking at the schedule now, right?
Yeah.
We're April 13th, expense workshop.
Right.
Next item is budget message on May 31st. But we have to vote on that, so,
Yeah, after the budget message, you'll have another public hearing
Right.
at 9 a.m.
Right.
to discuss what's in the message.
right.
Right.
And one thing I want to remind the board, there's also this sewer and water capacity rate structure that's in the airspace also that we're working into. So that's, what's the 45-day period? Yeah, there was a public notice, we put it out, and we're trying to inculcate that into the budget process, and as part of that, there is a proposed public hearing to be set on y'all's agenda soon, so there's a process involved with that too.
Anything further?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second?
Meeting's adjourned.